The Mike Broomhead Show is brought to you in part by Cliff Castle Casino Hotel, Arizona Christian University, and Sanderson Ford.
Adding even more to the election season that's coming, John Boehner, Speaker of the House of Representatives, is resigning. What does that mean for Washington and the rest of the country? Welcome to the Mike Broomhead Show.
Well, I got a message, I got a song. Can I get a witness? Tell me what's going on. I show the people I've been away.
Hey, thank you for being here. We appreciate you joining us here on the Mike Broomhead Show here on AZTV 7. We got a great show for you this week. Sex trafficking is going to be the big topic. It's not something people like to talk about. But you know, the really big deal about it is it's happening everywhere. It's online. It's not just people on the streets. It's not just in the bad neighborhoods anymore. So it's something that needs to be addressed because it could be happening a lot closer to your home than you want to be comfortable with. So that's coming up today. But we start every show off with the headlines of the week. It's called The Sweep. Let's get started. I'll tell you what, things changed, man. John Boehner, the Speaker of the House, says after hearing the Pope speak, he decided it was time to leave his office. He had been considering it on a few different occasions, but after hearing the Pope, he decided it was time for him to go. Now, I spoke with Matt Salmon, a congressman from Arizona. Matt Salmon said that he was pulled into John Boehner's office on Thursday night and was told that John Boehner was pushing through the bill that would be funding the government, but it did not include defunding Planned Parenthood. Like it or not, and Matt Salmon is one of the people, part of the caucus, that says they will not vote for a bill that includes funding Planned Parenthood. So John Boehner said, look, this is what I'm doing. And they all left that office, and Matt Salmon told me, he said to his colleagues, something's up. He didn't even tell them on Thursday night, but Friday morning, he makes the decision he's leaving the office. During his resignation speech, we, of course, had the bet 60 seconds was the over-under. Would he cry at before or after the 60-second mark? I took the under. I'm pretty sure I'm the winner. John Boehner leaving that office leaves a big hole for the state of Ohio because they have to have a special election before the primary to replace him. Then they've got to have a primary and then elect somebody permanently to that seat for the next Congress. So it's going to be a busy election year in Ohio, on top of being a swing state and on top of hosting the Republican National Convention. Good luck, Ohio. Pope Francis. Pope Francis makes a visit to the United States and is exactly what you would expect. And during his visit, it was huge. Over 15,000 people greeting him at the White House lawn for a speech there. Private meeting with the president. He met with the leadership in Congress and then gave an address to the entire Congress. What I found interesting is the same ideals that make this Pope popular with people in the church are what make him unpopular with our form of government, because I don't think they mesh. I think it's great for the church to say we're nonprofit, and we want to make sure that what we do is take the money from the congregants that have and give to those that don't. That is a fantastic way a church should operate. But when the Pope says the system of government should be that way, it just isn't. It's not our form of government. In my opinion, we should return the power of benevolence and giving back to the community churches. That's where it should be. The Pope is right when he said the church should operate that way. That is how it should be done. But never should it be a form of government. It's too much power in the hands of the government, and by design, it's loaded down with bureaucracy. Let the local churches be the place of benevolence and giving. Return that power to the neighborhoods around our country. And lastly, charges in the I-10 shootings. The first 4 of them tied to one gun. That gun tied to one man. Now, the date has been shifted to 2 days previously, or more previous than we thought. That's because people going to the airport, tires shot. They didn't. They're called the never flat tires on the BMWs. They returned, got in their car, found the flat tire and the bullet. And if that is now the case and the timeline's right, this guy's tied with 16 felony charges, not terrorism. Terrorism may be too difficult to prove with trying to stop a government agency, and you also have to prove that you were trying to cause mass destruction, using a weapon of mass destruction, trying to cause mass casualties. May be too difficult to prove, but 16 felonies against this young man. We'll find out how far that's going to go, and is he going to plead out? Will there be a long trial and a conviction? Along with this, and today what's important is Phoenix Police Department has been given a grant to hire 25 more police officers. With 25 additional officers, the mayor and the vice mayor applauding that. Well, in a moment, I want to talk about this because it sounds like we're adding numbers to the police department. What someone in the media should have asked the mayor is, what is this going to do to the overall number of police officers? Because they lose a lot to attrition. So the question is, what police department do you want in your city? A reactionary force that answers crimes in progress calls, or a proactive force that's preventing crime? You can't have both when you're reducing the number of cops. So we talk about the I-10 shooter, the Phoenix Police Department adding numbers, and sex trafficking happens on today's show. Busy show. I'm glad you're here. Get with us on social media. We'll be back. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for being here on the Mike Broomhead Show. In just a moment, we are going to talk sex trafficking in an interview that you're not going to believe. But first, the Phoenix Police Department adding 25 officers with a federal grant. The mayor and the vice mayor talking about how great that they're going to be adding officers is. Well, let me explain something. They're not exactly adding officers. What they're doing is keeping up with attrition. There's something called the DROP program, which is an officer says, first responders say, I'm leaving in 5 years from today. That's their drop date. So we know that the Phoenix Police Department is going to be losing about 300 officers in the next couple of years to attrition and retirement. So the officers they're adding is just keeping up with attrition, which means all that experience will be lost, brand new inexperienced officers coming in. It's a good thing they're hiring, but when they tell you they're adding numbers, they're barely keeping up with loss. Here's what that means. Phoenix Police has a minimum staffing level for patrol. It's called beats plus one. The whole city is divided up into precincts, each precinct divided up into beats, like a beat cop. They have to have one officer for every beat, plus one officer in that area to help if necessary. In order to keep up with that demand, because they're down so many officers from a few years ago, they've pulled officers from all of the other details, all of the other squads of crime prevention. So they're answering crimes in progress. No call has ever gone unanswered. Crime stays relatively low. But look at the city of Phoenix being #1 in auto theft in the entire country a few years ago. You know how they stopped that? It's not even in the top 50 anymore. They had a crime unit that was specifically looking for auto theft. They've driven that way down. That's being preventative. That's being proactive and not reactionary. So when we talk about something like sex trafficking, where we're talking about now, do you want a police department that is out there arresting prostitutes and johns and arresting pimps? Or do you want some people out there preventing crime? If you're looking for prevention, keeping crime low through prevention, you need a bigger police department. They're paying for it in the city of Phoenix. They should get what they pay for. They need a lot more officers. Let's keep those officers safe. In a moment, we're going to talk about sex trafficking because it's a huge problem nationwide. We've got an event coming up that is going to help stop that and add awareness to it. We'll give you an idea of how you can be involved. But in a moment, an interview you're not going to want to miss about sex trafficking. Thanks for being here. Stick around because in a minute, your mind is going to be blown by what you hear. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Mike Broomhead Show. A very difficult topic to discuss and not one anybody really wants to talk about. We all know it exists. It's the topic of sex trafficking. It's not just people walking the streets. You're not just going to see men and women walking the streets anymore. Now it's online. It's a serious problem, and more than anything, it can happen in any one of our neighborhoods. The statistics are staggering. So joining me is Carolyn Jones, a survivor, and thank you for telling your story and doing this.
Thank you.
And Detective Sergeant from Mesa PD, Dominic Kaufman. Thanks for being with us, Sergeant.
Thanks, Mike.
The topic difficult, and I want to ask both of you maybe at the same time to describe for me how does a girl find herself in this life? And at what age are girls approached?
I think one of the things that I see or that I was a part of is you've seen it become a normal in some neighborhoods. It's normal. You see it every day. When I was first approached with this or first started in this type of lifestyle, it was normal. I seen the women ahead of me was doing it. It becomes normal in certain neighborhoods. It's like, it's a part of the hustle. It's a part of the game. It's a part of how you survive. It basically, at that time, it wasn't for a purse or nothing like that, or for drugs. It was a way to survive in a rough neighborhood.
And so when you see young girls that are involved in the life now, is it something that they're being set up for, that they see coming, or is it just a surprise? You one day find yourself doing something you never imagined you'd do?
Well, for me, it was kind of a surprise, because that's what I was told never to become. You know, my mom said I could be anything, you know, and she would love and accept us no matter what. But the one thing I found myself doing, and at the age of 15, I'm thinking that I'm a prostitute. And at that time, we didn't have the support and awareness that we have now. Because people looked at it that it only happened in that neighborhood, or it happens over here. It doesn't happen in my neighborhood. It doesn't happen in Scottsdale, Paradise Valley. It only happens in the lower part of towns. And I think that those girls are most at risk, because people don't believe that it could happen to their own daughter, their own granddaughter.
Sergeant Kaufman, then, with the presence of online and what happens now in whether it's online sites or Craigslist, anything like that, how has it changed and gone into some of these other neighborhoods?
Well, it's changed the game in a lot of different ways. So first of all, it provides anonymity to buyers. It provides anonymity to the girls that are out there advertising, and to the traffickers. And it gives them a venue to operate where they think nobody's really watching. The second part of it is on the recruiting side. When you're trying, if I'm a trafficker and I'm trying to draw girls, young boys, women into this lifestyle, I can reach thousands of people with one post. It's that easy. I don't have to go to schools, I don't have to go to malls, I don't have to go to parks to try and recruit. I can do it all online. And the problem is we're not warning our kids of who's out there and what they're doing.
It seems, we were talking before we started, it seems odd that we set our children up with their friends. We know who their friends' parents are, we watch them, but then we put Wi-Fi in the house, we give them a tablet or a smartphone, and then we let them on their own. And are they being preyed upon in their own homes? I mean, are there people reaching out to them and recruiting them based on where they go and websites they visit?
Absolutely. I mean, you said it. We're giving them an open network. We're giving them the keys to the car without giving them driving lessons. We're putting a blinking light on our front lawn saying, hey, teenager inside with emotional problems, you know, and she's posting or he's posting all of his problems out there for everybody to see, waiting for a predator to just come along and fill that need.
How has it changed in the law enforcement mindset when, say, someone sees either an ad online or sees a woman or a young man walking on the street? We see the product there of choices. And we may make judgments, but from a law enforcement perspective, you're now looking at a lot of the prostitutes, you're seeing them as victims. And how has that changed what you do?
So, like you said, most people see prostitution walking up and down the street, if they do see it, and they think that's criminal. That's a criminal element, that's a crime area. What they don't realize is that it's no longer walking up and down the street like it used to. It's going on online, in our neighborhoods, in cities all across America. And so for law enforcement, we realized probably a little too late, but we realized that these are good people that are being drawn into this. Whether it's the quote unquote boyfriend that lured them in, established a relationship before they turned her out into this life, or it's just somebody who thought they could make some money on the side to try and support themselves going through school or raising kids, and didn't realize the brutality and the endless spiral that they're going to get themselves caught up with. And so we have taken a victim-centered approach where we treat all these individuals that are caught in this lifestyle like victims. We offer services. We offer them ways out to try and help them first before just saying, hey, you know what, you're part of the problem, we're throwing you in jail. Because we're not arresting our way out of this problem. It hasn't worked.
And Carolyn, for you, what was it that, who was it that you finally trusted to help you get out of the life? And what was it that finally made you decide you wanted to change your life? And what's it like now speaking to young people about this topic?
It became a point where, as a youth, being molested, you know, drop out, or run away, all of the things that at that time that was considered, that qualified you to make you be a throwaway or a lost cause, where people, even society, would just give up on you as a child at that age. So at the age of 15, that was what I'd done to survive as a runaway. It later on became a way to support a drug habit, to deal with emotional pain. You're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, you're not accepted, you're not wanted, you're unloved, you don't fit in. All of those voices in your head that tells you you're nothing. So then you get hooked on these drugs to deal with some of the nasty stuff you have to do just to be a part of that life or be a part of that world. Some of the situations you get, and ended up getting stabbed, getting shot, going to prison, and these are by the guys that picked me up. I got stabbed by a guy that picked me up and was pronounced dead. I got shot by a guy that picked me up, okay? And then later on, you just become damaged goods. And then then there was a serial killer here in Phoenix that was going around, he's killing women. These are my friends. These are women that had families, that had beautiful families and had sisters and brothers and children that cared about them. But to society, these are just prostitutes. They just drug addicts. They just nothing, throw them away. These are the women that's my friends. These are the women that when I get hurt or I get stabbed out there, I don't go to the hospital, I don't go to the police. I go to them and we kind of patch each other up. These are women like that, they're my friends. And they finding their bodies in alleys and dumpsters on railroad track. When I just had enough. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. You know, I don't ever think you get to a bottom of this, because no matter how low you go in prostitution or in this lifestyle, it's always room to go lower and lower and lower. So when this guy was killing all these girls, and out of the 6 women that was murdered, I knew 4 of them women. And one of them women was my sister. And that hurts. It hurts, you know, to have to live, to understand that, you know, that any one of them can be sitting right here. So I don't take this for granted. I don't take this lightly. Because I know that any one of them could be, and probably should be, sitting here. And sometimes that's hard to deal with, that you survived a life. And now the call on your life is to go back and talk to young girls and tell them, look, you're not alone. You know, that you're above and not beneath, you know, and to try to encourage them, to let them know, to rewrite their story, to let them come from from tragedy to triumph. You know, and it's so hard, because a lot of times you have to deal with your own stuff. So it takes counselors, it takes therapists, it takes the vice, it takes all of us, the sergeants. It takes all of us to do this. This is not a one-person thing. The doctors, the teachers, everybody need to be involved in this, because this evil here is like no evil before, because you can go in your room and get online. And so to come from a life where you find yourself at a bus stop off 7th Street in Van Buren, and you out there and you drinking and you can't get drunk, and you smoking crack and you can't get high, nothing, everything you use to cover up those emotions, no feeling, they not working anymore. So you cry out. You cry out, you just want just some hope. You just want some peace. It don't matter, you just want some peace. You just want something different, you know? And then you don't want to die like that. Everybody I know was dying like that. And when they found my oldest sister, and they found my sister Janice, and they found her in that alley, that hurt. And I cried at that bus stop. I wanted out. I wanted to be free. I didn't want to die like that. If I leave here today and it's all gone, it's all good. I didn't die out there in that world. I didn't die a crackhead, prostitute, and that's how the world would have saw me. They wouldn't have seen 15-year-old Curlin. They wouldn't have seen 13-year-old molested Curlin that had to carry that hurt and that shame and that guilt in her spirit. They wouldn't have seen her. They wouldn't have seen that 15-year-old girl that was just looking for somebody to come and take her hand. I didn't want to be a prostitute. I wanted to be a nurse, and I am a nurse. I get to work with little girls, and I get a chance to rewrite their story. I get the chance to go inside their emotions, their pain, and their shame, and their guilt, and tell them you can begin again. It don't matter how you start, it's how you finish. I get to do this. So thank you, Mike. Thank you for letting me be a part of this.
I thank you for putting a human face on this, what people don't see, and thank you for advocating for these young people that may have made a big mistake, but they can find a way out. We're gonna, in a moment, we're gonna give you a way that you can help end this. We've got an event that's happening here very soon. There's a way we can end this, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment.
The Mike Broomhead Show is brought to you in part by Cliff Castle Casino Hotel, Arizona Christian University, and Sanderson Ford.
Hey, thanks for being with us here on the Mike Broomhead Show. I told you that was going to be a very, very powerful interview. We take a break every week, and we want to make sure we talk about something good that's happened. It's something tied to Arizona, and it's called Broomhead's Best. How about that? All right, now here's the deal. We know that the Pope was in Washington, D.C., and this week, Broomhead's Best, I'm going to say something nice about the White House. How about this? Washington, D.C. reached out and invited Governor Doug Ducey and his wife to the White House because they are practicing Catholics. And it was great to see Arizona represented so well. The governor and his wife were there. That interaction with the Phoenix Diocese Bishop Olmsted, was also in attendance. So this week, I think it's great because the Pope visit is huge for Catholics all over America. And for the White House to think enough to reach out to some of the prominent practicing Catholics across the country was not just a great political move, but just a great human move, because it's definitely big in the Catholic community to be able to be in the same room with the Pope. I think one of the pictures of where the governor and his wife were sitting inside the House chamber, you don't realize how big that room is on TV, but small when you are there. So it was really significant. And now for something viral that's burning up the internet, we call it #this. Young girl named Isabella Gregory. The pictures are going to melt your heart. She's in Kentucky. If you remember, there was an officer, a highway patrolman, who was murdered in the past week. There were a bunch of highway patrolmen in a McDonald's in Kentucky. She saw them and asked her mother if she could take her allowance money and buy them ice cream. The pictures of this little girl and what she did for the officers, because they were all grieving and they were there to help a grieving family member as they grieved the loss of this officer. Perfect timing for this little girl just doing something out of the goodness of her heart. It's just amazing, and that's what is this week's #this. Now, I told you you'd have an opportunity to help out in how you can stop sex trafficking. It's called the Rat Race, the race against trafficking. Join me on Saturday. You can be a part of my team by going to the website. Join us on a team, and let's do something about awareness and ending this horrible problem in Arizona and around the country. Join me in the Rat Race. Next week, Attorney General Mark Brnovich is going to be on the show. Mark Brnovich is going to talk to us about the casino in the West Valley. He's the perfect person because on behalf of the state, he's talking about ending this and why it shouldn't be here. But he also was the gaming commissioner here in the state of Arizona. So it'll be a fascinating conversation with him next week. Thanks again for being here. Don't forget to reach out to us via social media. We want to hear from you on Twitter, on Facebook, also on Instagram. Email me as well. Thanks for being a part of the show this week. We'll see you next week.
I got a message, I got a song.
Get more of Mike Broomhead on Facebook, Twitter, and of course weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on News Talk 550 KFYI.
Yeah, maybe I will tomorrow.